now.
Okay, so what do y'all think about Darcy so far?
He's alright.
He sounds like... Yeah.
It's a little odd.
He has some interesting ideas revolving around false modesty, I thought.
Yeah, that's true.
Isn't he also getting married or fixed to get married to his first cousin and just nobody's talked about it?
I don't think so, no.
There's like one of them where it's... He's not gonna get married to anybody. He's not like...
No,
I thought he was getting-
Bingsley's
Kingsley's?
sister is married already, and then Bingsley has another little sister who likes Darcy, but they're not getting married.
I could have sworn that
And
like
she's annoying.
Yeah, she's very annoying.
Yeah.
the officer, like George Wickham, I think was his name. Like he told Eliza that Darcy, because like Darcy took the money away from.
Yeah, away
him.
from Wickham.
Yeah, and so he told the story about how like Darcy's aunt is proposing to marry her daughter to Collins. Not Collins, Darcy.
Yes, but they're not... I don't think they're, like, engaged or anything. I think she just, like... I don't remember what her name is. It's, like, something like Leslie or something that starts with an L. And she wants her daughter to marry Darcy, but they're not engaged or anything. I think she's just hoping that Darcy will pick her daughter. That way she gets a large fortune of his land and stuff.
Does everybody have the order of the daughters? Like, do you know the order?
Well, oldest is Jane, second oldest Eliza, third oldest is
Mary.
Fourth Kat,
Yeah.
and fifth is
Lydia. Yeah.
Who's like 16.
Yeah. They're pretty young.
Catherine and Lydia are pretty close.
I think that Mr. Wickham is going to end up being the foil of Darcy. Because I feel like Wickham is not as, this is going to sound mean, but like deep in thought as Darcy is. Darcy is extremely intelligent.
He sounds more charming
I have
than
a,
Darcy.
I
Yes.
just
Does that
have
make
a
sense?
quick little prediction here that so I have not seen the movie.
Yeah, I don't know what happens.
So-
So.
Yeah. No, yeah.
I predict that Darcy is actually the nice guy and Wickham is a little douchebag.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Because, like, right now, I feel like Wickham's is trying to, like, tell Elizabeth all these bad things that, like, Darcy does. And, like people do that now, for sure.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
They, like, tell you all these bad things. I'm like, well, look at me. I'm good. Like, I'm the victim here.
Right, and he
Pity
kept
me.
saying, like, you know, I don't really know, so, like, don't listen to me.
Yeah,
but then we
it's
just
like, I
continue
wouldn't say-
on.
I'm not saying anything, but he's doing all the
Yeah,
bad things.
so I definitely think that, well,
Like,
of
Wickham
course,
may not be so as smart as Darcy or, like, deep as
Yeah.
Darcy, but he's, like, charming.
Yeah, he knows that
And,
he's
like-
charming, so he can kind of
Yeah.
work his way around.
And it
He
sounds
can
like Eliza
manipulate.
was left.
See, the
thinking
thing is,
but then
Darcy's...
at the same time, like, what does Wickham have to gain? Because Elizabeth doesn't have any money. So even if Wickham wants
Well, it's a common
Eliza.
trope. You see, the less charming one can often just be very bad at presenting themselves, and they end up
That's
being a
true.
better person, but they just can't really
Maybe he wants
express
to
it.
be like
Eliza is one who like prides herself on being the thoughtful one of the daughters, but she also seems to kind of go into guys without much thought. Like if they're a charming person, that is.
Yeah,
she
I
likes
think
to
you're
be the
right.
more
Maybe
thoughtful
she's easier to manipulate because of the, like, formal acts of, like, courtesy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be right.
Maybe
But
she
also, I
likes-
think she doesn't really, like, in comparison to Lydia and Kitty, they are, like, boy crazy. And I think, obviously, Eliza is not. But you're right. Maybe she's, like, putting her trust into Wickham extremely fast, and then she'll be burned later and fall into Darcy.
Well, how we started at the end of.
Well, that's the best part.
Yeah.
There's a love triangle.
Yeah, why don't we go back to how
Let's go.
Mr. Bennett is the best character?
Mr. Bennett is hilarious.
I love Mr. Bennett.
when he was like, I'm really just sick of my wife. That part was so funny. I was like, yeah,
And the thing is, he's always just in a joking manner.
yes.
Yeah, like he always says something. He just roasts his family constantly, but it's in a very endearing way.
Oh yeah, and how he basically said that his daughters were like stupid.
Yeah, except for Elizabeth.
Yeah, he definitely plays favorites with Elizabeth. But I think that's just because she's like the epitome of a daddy's girl, like, you know, in the woods or whatever, instead of like, oh, look at these pretty dresses.
Speaking of that also reminds me. What was everybody's opinion on when Mr. Bingley's sisters were kind of harshly judging Eliza?
Oh, based on whenever she like
Yeah,
ran
that's
through the
when
woods.
she-
when she walked
for
all the way
what?
to go see her sister who was sick.
I know.
I'm like, she's so dirty.
What do you expect?
Yeah, she just walked like miles to get to her sister. Yeah, I don't like them at all. I think they're extremely fake. And then they like hugged her and everything whenever she
Yeah.
left. I was like,
Yeah.
just leave her alone.
It was bad.
But I do like how Eliza, she seems to see the good in people, which might, like we were talking about earlier, how she might be falsely putting her trust into Mr. Wickham. Oh my goodness. And I really don't like Mr. Collins at all. I want him to like shut up the whole time.
I
I'm
thought
like,
he was getting, I thought he
yes.
was getting engaged to some new widow, and then
He's trying to make a move on his cousin.
and now he's making a move
Yeah.
on his cousin.
And the person in my audiobook is really
He's
good,
like,
too.
save these
Mr. Collins.
two dances for me, so that way I can propose to you. Like,
Yeah, and Eliza's like, no thanks.
And
But
she's
she like can't say
I
that.
already promised them to Wickham, but she's like, dang, no, I know that's good.
I don't know. I think Darcy, I didn't know that, like, there could be a Victorian bad boy, but that is literally what Darcy is.
Yeah,
like, the
he
library, the not caring at
Like,
all.
all of this is super attractive about him.
Yes, it is. It is.
It is. Like-
Darcy, like, they started off about him being like super judgmental and like he's doesn't want to talk to anyone and stuff like that.
But he's mysterious.
He is
Very open about being prideful.
But then
He
I
is
love.
mysterious, but I feel like that's just a personality trait of
Yeah.
his. And like, if you listen to him later on and stuff, like he's actually a lot more of a caring person than people think.
Right.
He's just overall nicer than what they all have this image of him. He just has a different personality trait.
He just doesn't care about the little common courtesies. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't care about the chit chat. He really wants to get down to the root of the matter. And I love that we can hear his thoughts. So, like, if we were watching the movie or something, he would just be like a jerk. But we get to hear his thoughts in the book, so we're like, oh, he really does care about Elizabeth. And oh no, he's worried whenever he sees her with Mr. Collins. And I'm like, yay!
I like that, yeah.
Beat him up.
Yeah, for real. Go get him, Darcy.
I wish you would just, like, tell her that. Like,
I know,
who-
we would have such a
like,
short book then.
Tell her how you feel. Because, like, that's what happens. Like, when you're not going to be nice to a girl, like, she likes you, and then you're mean to the girl, she's going to, like, be like, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
I did think that it was
Actually, a lot.
interesting. There was one point early on in the chapters, I want to say like 4 or 5, whenever the Lucas's daughter and Eliza were talking about how Jane really needs to like utilize her time wisely with Mr. Bingsley or he's going to be oblivious to her. And I thought that was extremely true.
Yeah.
I was like, that is true
Like,
nowadays.
they only have every once in a while to...
Yes.
Oh yeah. Also,
She has to upplay the.
Right, yes, the antics or whatever to woo him.
Mrs. Bennet is a friggin' schemer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You have to be when you have $5 to marry off.
Yeah.
You
Well,
have
she's,
to be.
To be fair for her, she's very worried about the fact that if her daughters aren't married by the time that their father dies, they're going to be
Yeah.
kind of screwed.
They're
Yeah.
gonna be
Unless
have
they
to,
go
poor.
In the society,
Unless they
you
go
have to marry them off.
to the Olive Gardens or whatever they said it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they have to really marry off a lot. And it's
Collins,
work.
I like when he showed up to the house, like, you know, the whole letter thing was like, okay, maybe he's kind of a nice guy. And then he shows up to the
I
house,
know.
he's like, so this is, I like this future furniture of mine.
I know.
Shut up.
I was like, oh my gosh, why are you so mean? Yeah, I really don't like him. I hope that he, I don't know, gets hit with a stick or something, or loses the land or something.
Burn.
I don't know.
The carriage flips over.
Yeah, something like. And I don't like how he keeps talking about that one lady, like all the time.
Mary Catherine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Catherine
Lady Mary.
DeBoer or whatever.
DeBoer, what a name.
It's like, shut up. Like, okay, she's the nicest person you've ever seen. Whatever, shut up, dude. I really hope that she falls in love with Darcy and
Have we really
that we have
heard-
more drama.
Have we really heard anything else on the sisters besides Jane and Eliza yet?
Just that, like, Kitty and Lydia are obsessed with officers.
Yeah.
Oh, and I thought it was
Oh, yeah,
so
I do know
funny
that.
whenever Mrs. Bennett was like, "Oh, Mr. Bennett, don't call them stupid because before I met you, I would love to have had an officer." That's basically what she said,
She's
and I
like,
thought
you
that
can't you can't expect the kids to be smart like adults. You
was
see.
right because they're not yet, and I thought that was so funny.
What about the middle child, Mary? Have you heard anything on her?
She's
Oh
the
yeah,
one
she's the one that
who's-
makes the insightful
Yeah.
Yeah.
like little moments of clarity that sound way smarter than they should be. Like
There's like.
But
not
she's
much
like
to her,
extremely cocky because she's like blah 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 blah, and everyone's like,
I feel like she has to be because I feel like that's like the middle child syndrome where you're like.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
she
you
has
don't
to
get
be the
attention,
smarty
so
pants.
yeah. She reminds me of like Sadness on
Yeah.
Inside Out.
Inside Out.
Yeah, if she was a character, it'd be Sadness.
What a comparison.
Miss Bingley, the sister, I hated that chapter where she was like talking to Darcy and like I
Yes.
could totally picture
Oh,
in my brain.
yeah.
She's
where
just
he
trying to
was,
talk
like,
trash
she
the whole
He was
time.
like
Nah,
trying
she-
to write the letter and he was
I
like,
know.
shut up, leave me alone.
No,
Yeah.
she
Like,
wants
talking to him.
Darcy.
She wants him so bad.
Yeah.
But I
It's-
also
it's
like
annoying.
Desperate.
I also like how Jane Austen put Darcy's sister in there because
Yeah.
you know how people are always like, well, you don't know a guy until you see how he treats his mom.
Well,
And it's like a-
obvious that he's a
Right.
good brother, and it says like even Mr. Wickham's like, yeah, he's a great brother. Like he's super protective of her. and stuff
Exactly.
Like that. So, I know I liked like hearing that part too. I was like, oh, like even though he may be rude to you, he's a good brother.
Right. And if
And that
you
says a lot about
if you
a
wiggle
guy.
your way into his black heart, then you'll be protected.
Yeah. It tells a lot about his character.
Eliza has wiggled her way in there. She just
Yes,
doesn't
I
know
love.
about
She
it.
doesn't really know it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love the part whenever he was like, in his thoughts, he was like, "And I'm more attracted to her than I wish I was," or something. And I was like, "Oh, that's so cute."
And like when he admitted that like the reason he like said that about her, like he just didn't want to be like he didn't want people to like know that he
Yeah.
thought of something differently about Eliza.
God forbid a guy.
Well,
I know.
he likes a girl.
No.
It was God, Mrs. Bingley. Yeah, name was lost on me for a second. They were talking, and as Mrs. Bingley was trying to talk trash about Elizabeth, pretty much, referring to how Darcy earlier commented on her eyes or something, and she's like, "Well, now that she's all dirty and nasty and stuff like that because of the big old walk, guess you don't like her anymore." And he's like,
like, "No."
"Nah."
She was like, I think
Her
that's
eyes
kinda-
were brightened.
Yeah, and he also talked about like how he thought that was kind of like, I don't remember what word he said, but kind of like just courageous and caring of her to
Mhm.
go
Yes.
that distance by herself to just check on her sister.
Yeah.
Which, again, we were just talking about him being protective of his own sister.
Right. So that's gonna be good. That's
They can
probably
relate.
why he was so protective of her doing that for her own sister.
How long have we been going on this? 15 minutes?
I thought it was weird that the word handsome is also like pretty. Like it is used
Yeah,
in most
they had a different definition of it back then, I guess.
Yeah,
Like
but
it's
I mean,
used in both contexts.
like if I
Attract
called
that,
you
yeah.
handsome, you wouldn't be like, "Are you calling me ugly?" So I think it has
That's
the same.
It's just like weird to hear.
Macho.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, she's handsome.
Have an amazing jawline.
I also thought it was extremely sexist. Their conversation about how like they didn't know many extraordinary women, because not many women could were
Oh,
well-rounded
yes,
in
yes. I know
cooking
what you're
and
talking
playing
about, yeah.
different instruments and stuff.
And
I was like, that's
all that.
terrible.
It's apparently Miss
Just different
Darcy,
standards.
The sister is well accomplished. and-
yes.
Where was that?
To be fair,
But I
they
kinda
do
was
come
trying to
from a
know.
very rich.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's
area.
the time.
Yeah,
and,
like,
for
obviously
them,
it
it's
makes
just a
sense,
different.
This
It's
is
just different.
England.
They're not used to the same things, and so
Right.
they're both having to adapt to things. And
Makes
then,
sense, though.
like Miss Bingley, I hated when she said, like, when they were talking about that, and Eliza was like asked Miss Bingley, like, do you know of many like this? And she was like, well, of course I know plenty of them. As myself, I am one, and stuff like that. I'm like,
I know.
Shut
I was like,
Like, I even said, one of my notes was just shut up. Take the hint.
and I loved how
So
Darcy was
embarrassing.
like, a lot of girls play dumb just so, guys will respect them. And I was like, that's a great point, Darcy. Because Elizabeth doesn't do that.
Yeah.
She doesn't play dumb. She doesn't care if men want her just because.
no, because she kept telling him no.
Yeah.
She doesn't care. And I think that's
I was very, very confused though whenever they're at the ball and Mr. Lucas is trying to give Eliza to Darcy
I thought that
because,
was weird, too.
yeah, I thought it was weird.
Well, because
Like, I think
Darcy,
Yeah.
I could do that to another daughter that wasn't his. And
Right.
yeah, but their families are best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they were talking about. Like, Eliza and Mr. Lucas's daughter are literally best
What is
friends.
her name?
I think it's also Catherine. Or no,
I know there's a Louisa somewhere and then there's a Maria.
I don't remember what it is.
I think it's Maria Lucas. And
Okay.
there's one
I don't remember.
And then they have a younger son. Oh, also
Yeah,
how Mrs. Bennett just will call the Lucas's daughter ugly.
Oh.
Like any
Oh, yeah.
chance she
Any
gets.
chance he gets.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, that's terrible.
I think it's Charlotte.
The Bennett's
Okay,
parents
Charlotte.
are the
I
best.
think Charlotte's
Okay.
Eliza's friend. Yeah.
But
There's two Lucas daughters and his son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I was like, I could count how many times she said that the Lucas daughters are ugly.
I
A
know.
lot.
The Bennetts have no chill.
That's like Mr. Bennett is the only one who isn't fake.
Yeah.
Because even the youngest daughters about Mr. Collins really wanted to get away from him, but then they wouldn't say anything. And I thought it was so funny that Mr. Bennett just offered Mr. Collins to go with the girls. That way he wouldn't be in his house.
I thought, or Darcy and Bingley are very opposite each other.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
they're
that's why they-
foils.
that's probably why they get along so
Yeah.
well.
Probably.
You see that a lot in guys, like when they're complete opposites, but they get along.
Get
so
along.
well.
Yeah.
Probably 'cause you
Eliza
balance each
asked
other out.
And Eliza asked towards the end of her chapters, she's like, why does Mr. Bingley hang around him if he's such a bad guy?
Also, I'm pretty sure Mr. Lucas was offering the dance because Darcy, right before, had just told Bingley about
Oh,
how
yeah.
he actually
never-
was a lot more attracted to Eliza than he wished he was, and then Mr. Bingley was seen talking to Mr. Lucas.
Right. I forgot about that. I hope that Mr. Bingley plays matchmaker and pushes Darcy get your
what's going.
yeah
He's like,
screw your head on Darcy, go get her or something in the end. I think that would be funny.
So does Mr. Bennett just basically sit at home all day?
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to go to parties. He's like,
I don't feel like he really does much other than just be at home.
well, he did set up the meeting with Mr. Bingsley in the first part of the book. Because the Mrs. Bennett was like, oh my gosh, your dad's the best, blah, blah, blah. How could he ever do that?
That's one
And then-
thing.
I know.
He's amazing.
She was like, y'all will never be able to, make it up to
enough,
him.
yeah.
Yeah, make
Yeah.
him enough. I was like, oh my
Something I had
goodness.
to I was questioning in my head the whole time. Do these people have jobs?
No.
Any of them at all?
No, because it
Their
said,
estate brings them money.
yeah. Because it said in our notes that, the people that we were talking about are the ones who, make their money off of their land.
Okay.
It's the same
Back
way
then,
with
the estates, they just had servants.
Yeah. And I think it's so weird that Mrs. Bennett doesn't make her daughters cook. because they have a cook, like, who cooks for them. And so I thought that was so
Yeah,
weird. in
considering how badly she
comparison.
wants them to get married.
Yes, because
Well-
when everyone brings it up, she's always like, well, they can, but we don't make them.
So in the super rich areas, they're talking about like how their women should be cooking and stuff like that. But and then in these wealthy areas, like where the Bennetts are living, they're wanting to, as they see it, they want to have stuff done for them rather than accomplishing themselves,
Right.
because it's just another
It's a
disparity
lot like,
between each other. Kind of like middle class and
What's that
rich
show
now. Like the
about
rich want to do things, but the middle class wants to
British
do
people?
stuff.
oh my gosh.
Rich
It
British
has
people?
gone out of my brain. The
Is it an older show?
Abbey show.
Oh, like Downton Abbey?
Downton Abbey, yes. It's like Downton Abbey. Like the state brings them all the money, and like the women are accomplished in music and arts and all these things.
Right.
But like they couldn't cook to save their life because like they have like all these maids
Yeah.
and like ladies in waiting and stuff. So like
It's just weird because it's like a weird balance.
yeah.
Like,
Yes, they're accomplished, but they're like
Yeah.
they couldn't survive on their own.
right.
So.
Or like they want them to be able to cook and stuff for their husbands, but then they're just gonna have servants do it for them anyway.
Yeah.
Or like if you want someone to play the piano, just hire someone. Like invite them into
It's
your
like
home.
an interesting like, oh, you can play the piano.
Right.
You're accomplished. Like, oh, you can paint.
And does Eliza play the violin or does she sing? I was confused.
I think she sings, and then Jane plays the
Jane plays the piano.
or the other way around, something like that. It's piano and singing.
Okay. Because I think they asked Eliza to sing, but she didn't want to. So then Jane played piano and someone else sang.
Yeah. I thought she did sing at one point.
I don't know. The book is kind of confusing.
It is.
Just because of the way it was written, and then all of the like nicknames coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I
It's
feel
a
like
lot.
it's common though at the beginning of books
Yeah.
for there to be like confusing.
Just because they're
stuff.
trying to set the background.
Yeah, and then like as you get closer to chapter 17, things started to clear up more and more.
Yeah. And you actually get to the storyline instead of just the background plot.
Yeah.
I don't really like the aunt, like, of the daughters.
The Philip girl.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't really like her. Just because, I don't know, anyone who talks to Mr. Collins for that long is like, yeah, she's like,
You're like-
gotta,
Something sketch.
Yeah.
She set it up. Yeah.
She probably did. And do this like the officers and stuff? Are they at her house?
Yes.
Like just staying there?
Yeah, I think so. Like, whenever they come into town, I assume that they just, like, visit people.
Okay.
So I think that's what was going on. Like, that's why they brought Wickham
Okay.
in, I think. And I really hope, because I think Mrs. Bennet would really like Mr. Collins to marry Elizabeth, just because then Elizabeth would obviously stay at home on the
Yeah.
estate. And I really don't want anyone to marry Mr. Collins, like, at all. Like, no
Like,
one deserves
Nothing's
that.
attractive about it.
No, not at all. And he's a priest.
And I thought, okay, that's
Like,
why I was confused. It's like,
yeah.
wait, you're not allowed to marry. And like the lady in
Lady-
charge of the like,
Lady
the
Catherine
church
or
was
whatever.
like, go get married. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
wait, that doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense. Like, what are... I guess they won't
Like
have
this-
children? Like, what
This is like Orthodox Catholic,
Who
right?
would want to
Yeah.
marry a priest?
Okay, well, I guess, though, at the same
Sounds
time, a
boring.
lot of women back then would be forced to do things with their husband. So I guess if you marry a priest, you don't have to worry about that.
But like,
But-
why would you get married as a priest? I thought you weren't allowed.
Financial reasons.
Well, no, because
No, because
You're
he's
a
taking
priest.
over
taking
the.
over the estate.
Plus, he already has one.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem legit to me.
No, something's wrong
Something's
with
off
that.
about him.
He's
Yeah,
a fake priest.
maybe.
Maybe.
Or he's in love with Lady Catherine.
No, he definitely is.
Or maybe just
Yeah.
Jane Austen doesn't
Oh,
know how Catholicism
yeah.
works.
I don't know. But
There's like a part where I was like, dude, that's your cousin. That's weird.
Yeah.
who? Elizabeth?
Collins.
Like a Collins?
Collins is like asking for Catherine's hand or something like that. Like in his letter. Maybe.
Wait, what? Lady Catherine is different from
No, little Catherine.
Little Catherine. Okay.
Little Catherine.
I thought it was funny whenever Mrs. Bennet was like, "Well, Jane is, going to be engaged
Jane's
soon."
busy.
Yeah, and then he immediately was like, "Oh, well, that's fine, because I like Elizabeth anyway."
Yeah,
Like,
I was
no,
like-
you didn't. No, you didn't. She's just second in line. Like,
He just wants somebody.
So then when Eliza rejects him, all
I
right,
guess
Mary's
he's gonna
in
move
Yeah,
on down
Mary.
the line.
Yeah.
hopefully Mary will just like bore him to death.
So they also are talking a lot about Mr. Bennet's death. So
I
when
know,
do we
like-
predict this is going to be happening?
What's
No
up with
book,
it?
in the book.
Probably end of the book.
Yeah.
Either
They-
that
Well,
or he
I
just
don't
like
know,
doesn't
'cause-
die.
Yeah.
and they just
No, I
talk
feel
about it
like
just
his
to
death
make
would
sure.
impact the family heavily, so
They're
we
gonna-
would see the repercussions of
Yeah.
that. So I'm assuming mid-book, if not late mid-book.
Well, but then, because obviously
if-
this is going to be a slow
Yeah.
burn
But
romance.
it's also
Look at the
it's-
thickness of this
yeah,
book.
It's also
definitely
about
Yeah, so I don't think he'll die because then that would just leave all the sisters in,
and
mayhem.
it's about Elizabeth.
I know an older
Right.
guy plays him in the movie.
So
and
I
I think he's
think-
just older, so that way they're just like preparing, like, okay, you need to get
Yeah.
married just in case. You need to get married just in
Right.
case. And like that's their number one goal as a family because they have 5 daughters and no sons, is to marry them off.
Right. And I think it would happen at the end of the book. That way, if, like, Elizabeth was still deciding, then they'd be like, well, you need to hurry up now because he's dead.
Yeah.
And
they definitely
then,
kept just trying for a son.
Oh,
How far to the end of the
Well, yeah,
book are
you
we
have
talking?
to.
Because I mean, think of it like from a narrative perspective. You would have to want him dead
Probably
like
too old.
sooner than the very end because
well, maybe
like-
not. Maybe she goes to Wickham, and Wickham's like, "Oh," and then he dies, and then
he dies
Darcy's
in
like,
war.
"Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry," and then Elizabeth is like, "Oh yeah, you're it, you're the one," and then
You're
they
the
get
one.
married, and
Nah,
then
he gets bopped in the American Revolution.
what?
we'll edit that out.
I hope he doesn't die, but if he did, I think it would be towards the end, whenever she
Yeah.
has to make a decision.
I think so.
Oh, I was talking about Wickham.
Oh,
Yeah, no, because
Maybe.
he's an
I
officer.
don't think
he,
that.
he, he
I don't
gets
think
bopped.
Mr. Bennett's gonna die.
I hope. Well, because then if he died, then Mary and Catherine and Lydia would still have to find husbands.
Yeah.
They need an officer.
What
Maybe.
happens to Mrs. Bennet? Where does she go after Mr. Bennet dies?
Probably
just
some
be a-
One of her
widow's
daughters.
She'd just be a widow and her daughter.
home.
Okay.
That,
think
or
that's
she'd
how
just
it
go to like a
works.
widow's home or something like that.
A
Okay.
widow's home.
Yeah, they have those at churches. Like
Okay.
they come,
yeah.
they go and
yeah,
do like
you're
nuns
right.
and stuff.
Oh,
Like an
a
ass.
monastery.
The
yeah,
Eddies.
monastery. Yeah.
We're so close.
Okay. What else?
But we have filled it
That's
with
why a lot of
silence.
nuns were like older.
Because they were all widows. What do you think is going to happen the next few chapters?
The ball at what's his face?
Bingley's.
I'm so excited to see
I
what
know.
happens.
I want Darcy.
I want Darcy to dance with her so bad.
I want Darcy to just like throw up his feelings, just like.
like on accident.
He's
We
gonna
know
s-
that's
no,
not going to
here's-
happen.
That's
at the
not
very
gonna
end.
happen.
It's
But
too
My
still.
okay, quick. Let's do all a quick prediction here. So my prediction is, Mr. Wickham and Collins are gonna be like, "Oh, this is my dance, blah blah blah." And they're gonna get into like this little like bickering, and then Darcy's just gonna show up and be like, "You know what? Come on." And then they're gonna have a dance, and then it's just gonna be just a bunch of bickering.
But then the whole world will stop when Eliza
Yes, and Darcy.
Darcy's dancing
I
together.
have a long-term prediction
Yeah,
myself.
Mr. Bingsley and Jane are just gonna be like,
I have a
know
long-term.
what Kaden-
I have a long-term prediction myself. Eliza seems like the proud type, so I can predict that
Yeah.
Darcy is going to offend her in some way. So even when he does
accident.
first confess his feelings, she's going to be offended, and she's not going to
Probably.
accept it.
And then it'll like
it's gonna-
switch
It's
to
such a
where.
slow
Yeah, but she has
So
To where
Yeah.
she has to find a way to.
She's already done it. She's already rejected him so much. So then she's going to accept into it, and then he may do, because he's prideful as well.
Right.
She may do something that offends him, which then he gets upset, and then they're both just going to go back and forth.
I think it's gonna be
Well,
like
But yeah, but Darcy
one of them's
hasn't
gonna
been-
play hard to get, and then they'll switch.
Yeah,
And
Darcy
then
hasn't
finally-
been completely and utterly honest in front of Eliza. He hasn't been completely open, so I feel like there's going to be a turning point where he does that, and then Elizabeth is just gonna completely outright reject every advance right then and there. But then she's gonna realize that he's not that bad, and then the next part of the book is gonna be her trying to find a way to
Like reconcile.
reconcile. Yeah.
And there was a part in the movie where like Darcy either helps Eliza up into the carriage or like helps her down, and then like their like, hands touch, and then like he like spreads his hand like this because he's like, oh my gosh, our hands touched, and like that's like such a big point
This
in
is
the movie.
okay. This is gonna
But
happen
I
after
don't know where
Netherfield
it
Ball.
happens.
This is gonna happen after the Netherfield Ball.
I don't know where it happens, but it's like he goes like this in his hand, and he's like, oh my gosh.
I thought
That's
this
a big
book
thing.
was gonna be kind of boring because most of the time I don't like romance books, but I like slow burns
This is like a
because I'm like on the edge of my seat. Like, please,
I like
please.
that we know some stuff that other people don't. And like,
Yes.
I
Like,
don't know what that's called. It's like irony.
situation.
Situational
No,
irony.
dramatic.
Dramatic irony.
I don't
Dramatic
know.
irony?
What's that called?
Yeah, Miss Nori Hill.
Hill.
What's that called?
Well, anyways, we're coming to the end of our session.
31
Yay!
minutes. Well done.
Well done.
Yes.
Okay.